Hello, welcome back to Touchline Talk. Hopefully, you have returned from episode one. We touched on quite a lot, I think, Lloyd. Lots of things
Yeah,
to look forward to, and I think now we're sort of going to try and really delve into, deep dive into each of our
me.
sort of pathways. And you're up. No, this
Yeah.
is
Well,
episode 2, Lloyd Owers.
that's the thing. Hopefully, we didn't bore people too much in the first time talking about our journeys and some little key points, but they're going to bore them a little bit more now, hearing about mine a little bit more in depth. So, yeah, no, all good. Ready to go.
Well, Lloyd, really. So,
Yeah.
talk us through. I know we touched a little bit on last one, but talk us through your journey, and then let's see where we can pick up some bits along the way and share those. I mean, some of your experiences that we discussed a little bit last episode were fantastic, and I think to get to the point you're now uh, is incredible. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, obviously, we mentioned where I was last time in terms of roles and stuff like that. And I suppose what we'll do is just talk about a little bit more in depth in what those roles contained and some other little projects on the side that I've been involved with as we've gone. So, I suppose for me, like we said, community coaching was the first real stance. I played up until I was about 24, but I started coaching when I was 16. Left school, went straight into coaching. I did, I think, about 5 hours, no, 3, 4, 5 hours a week at Colchester United initially. And then, so that was my first real paid coaching. But then I was offered a full-time role within F2. So I went across to a Football 2000 instead. And
I mean, that's quite lucky, no, to get a full time role that early is really
yeah,
good going.
I think by the time I went in full-time, I was about 17. I just passed my driving test. So yeah, I was 17 then. So I did 5 hours a week coaching and then some study on the side until 16 to 17. And then 17, I went straight into full-time work coaching. And I was really young. I remember thinking like, I realised I was young, but at the same time, I think we had, because obviously you were there as well, we had such a young workforce anyway that it didn't really matter too much. We had a couple of older heads and the rest of us were really young. Like, you're what, 2 years older than me, something like that. We had,
Yeah, yeah.
I should probably give context to this. So myself and Simon, we know each other professionally, but we also know each other like personally. We're in a, we have a good, strong friendship group. And one of those friends is, a guy called Frosty, Adam Frost, who also works at F2, didn't he, with us?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And he's like
Yeah.
part of, one of our good friends now, still coaches. So yeah, it's interesting, like that sort of foundation for it. But yeah, like you said, I was very young going into full-time coaching, and I didn't probably take it. I don't know, didn't take it as seriously as I did later on at times, but probably was just a naivety to it all, I guess. First job, I don't know. So it could have been a little bit, or first full-time jobs could have been very different.
I
But
mean, you were really young, Lloyd. I mean, I think first and
yeah,
foremost is massive credit to get into that position at that age. I think a lot of people strive to work in sport or football full time, and to do it at that point is incredible.
I remember thinking at the time, I say full time, it was probably about 30 hours a week, something like that. And I remember thinking, like, at the time, it was something stupid, like £720 a month or whatever. And I was thinking, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And then but obviously, look back, and then I don't know what it's equivalent to now, but yeah, what you're talking about, 18 years ago, something like that. So it's a long time.
That's a long time.
14 years. I'm not that
Yeah.
old. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've got to be honest. It is. I was right the first time, mate. I just didn't want to really believe it. I didn't want to believe it. Looking at the calendar, thinking, "Oh my lord!" But yeah, it's just one of them things where I don't know. Just you can take it for granted because you're in that position. I think. But the good thing about it, like we said in the last episode, I was teaching in schools Monday to Friday. I was doing a couple of evening sessions a week, and I really enjoyed that, and it was really good. So from that, I was there a year and a half or something like that. And whilst I was there, I still dabbled with fitness, which I've always sort of still do now a little bit in
Yeah.
terms of like personal training. So whilst I was still there, I trained to be a personal trainer and I PT'd on the side whilst coaching.
I think that's something that you were really sort of proactive with in terms of really trying to look at different areas and avenues to progress. I mean that was a massive strength from my perspective that you had there. It's a case of you're looking at different avenues to move forwards.
Well, that's the thing. The fitness side of it, it's always been part of my life in terms of the courses and stuff as well, and teaching it and being a PT on the side of coaching. I've never done it full time really. I've always done it because I wanted to coach more. But it did lead to other good football positions. So, like for example, later down the line, I was the first team fitness coach at Chelmsford City. So, being around like the Conference South at 25 was a really good experience, and
I can remember while you were there. That was we were buzzing at that time, no? For you to get in that position, it was class.
Yeah, it was good. It was just like a nice environment to be in. It was good, but challenging, I think, at the time as well, because I was the youngest staff member. I was younger than a lot younger than some of the players we had. So
I mean, how would you like? Obviously, I guess we've got lots of listeners and watchers that are probably in a similar boat. Like, what sort of to be in that sort of situation and to have success as you did, what sort of qualities do you think? Can you remember that or that you could advise people on what's important for people that are looking to try and do similar?
I think for me, I realised that I needed to earn more money than just coaching at the time. Like I said, at 7:20, I was thinking, great, 17, but I always wanted to do a bit more. So when I was 18, like I said, I trained to be a PT. But I think working with people one-to-one also helped my coaching, because you understood people, you understood how to approach people, and because it was a one-to-one focus, it could either go two ways. There was either real silence and it was awful, or you understood why there was silence because there was external factors. And I think you can take that into your coaching. So I think initially that was quite a big thing for me. I didn't put it into practice in terms of football-wise until a later stage, because my first sort of paid sideline gig, I guess, to my coaching was when I went to Colchester United from F2. So I was working as a community coach full-time at Colchester United. Same again, schools, leisure centres, after-school clubs, development centres, whatever it may be, a bit of girls' academy football at the time, stuff like that. And then alongside it, I was a first-team scout, because scouting has also been a route that I've quite enjoyed. And the reason I got into it was because I just started looking at it thinking, I could do that. I could spot a player, or I could write a report on it. So I did it a couple of times just as like a test of waters with a couple of clubs to just see what's happening. And I remember getting paid at the time. I was like 19, I think, maybe coming up to 20. Yeah, something like that. When I was like, I was then getting paid 50 quid a game to scout for Hornchurch. And the manager was fantastic. Like, he would message me on like the Wednesday, Thursday, saying, "What's your availability for Saturday? Where, can you do this game?" And I was always free. I could always do it. So I was always going somewhere who they were playing the following week. We had a really good season. I remember I finished third and lost in the playoff final, I believe. So it was a decent season. And then I realised I quite liked the environment of like being around men's football, but also I was working with kids on a weekday, so I had a bit of both and loads of different experiences to football. But then that scouting experience has come in at a later date as well. So obviously, like we said, from Colchester United, whilst I was still there, like I said in the last episode, I went to Canada and had that experience. So my days there it was a summer period, so it was camps 9 till 12. I wouldn't really do a lot between 12 and sort of 5. I would just hang out with some people I met out there, Raheem, who I was living with as well. We would just mooch about, do different things and whatever. And then evening was busiest. It was like 5 till 9 coaching, and that was every day. But the good thing about it was the level was so high, and I remember thinking, like, this is amazing. I just couldn't believe coaching like an under 9 girls team, and then the next session was like an under 14s boys team. And then it was whatever else in between. And it was like, this is crazy. Like, the exposure to coaching was brilliant, but the level was even better. And then weekends was a mixture of just coaching, like games. I would have like a 5 to 6 year old session in the morning and all day, both days. And he'd work in 7 days a week, but he didn't really care. And it was fantastic. And then, like I said,
I mean, there's some big differences there, in terms of ages,
crazy,
like crazy. That is really tough.
But that's what I mean. Like, you learn informally how to differentiate sessions. So like you're doing a camp with a mixed age group, and then next you've got a few hours break, and then you've got an academy sort of team based session. And just the planning was very good, because I probably wasn't the best at it, purely because I just didn't really want to do it. I was a bit lazy at that stage. But Raheem was absolutely bang on it all the time, like, and he would be really to the point of like, this is why we're doing it. We've got to do it properly. And it was, I understood it. It was to benefit the players, but also to benefit the parent coaches around you, because some of them were getting paid for it, but they were still parents and they could still influence how they approach the session because their kid was on the team or whatever. So yeah, I understood the importance of that planning, and then that became like, oh, okay, this is why we're doing. This is really important. This is really good. So yeah, it just gave me an insight into like the organisational aspects of football, not just the delivery itself.
I mean, it's interesting that you talk about those experiences, and obviously your experience from Canada, a little bit what you mentioned before, definitely seemed to have quite a big impact and big experience to really drive you on and progress. And I think that sometimes, I mean, tell me if it's different, but I mean, sometimes I think we can sometimes get a little bit tunnel visioned and think sometimes that Europe is the only way, or England is the only way. But actually, you know, when you go and explore different countries and different places, some of the work being done in different places is really top work.
There's a reason why coaches get paid quite well out in like North America, I think, because I think sometimes there's probably a bad side to it as well. There obviously is, but it's great in the sense of it's a profession. And you also, for your own experiences, you know, you compare it to like Australia, New Zealand, stuff like that, where it's a growing game. And it's definitely important to see different sides of it. There's a reason why Michael Beale went to Brazil, and you know, there's a reason why Jack Brazil went to Cayman Islands. So you know, all these people have real good experiences because of it. It shaped their style. Like for me, it shaped me as a person, but it also shaped me as a coach, because I think, you know, it changes your style, it changes your identity, it changes your philosophy in a good way.
But I mean, you know, linking back to sort of, you know, again, sort of where we're looking to go with this sort of theme of the podcast, it's that international sort of exposure. No, it's going to different places and learning, and I think that's one of the really important things. I think, you know, your experience already from what you've told us shows is a case of, you know, and I know we're going to touch on Sweden and your experiences there and stuff, but you know, to go and explore, not only, I think you learn so much about yourself.
Yeah.
You put yourself in such a difficult, challenging position. You know, you're really out of your comfort zone. You have to learn a lot about yourself. You have to learn how to communicate, obviously very, very well, with people from a different culture. And I think that is a massive tool to learn. Obviously, then when you go back to, if you go back to England or wherever it is that you are from, you can use those experiences culturally as well. But you know, that communication with people to benefit your coaching, which when you talk about education and coaching is a huge part of being able to transmit and transfer information that you've got to your players, to the parents, and to everyone you're working with.
Oh, 100%. I think culturally I took a lot from it, because it's just, different area, you know, different things. It's very similar, obviously, in principle to the UK, but the way things are done is very different. I learned that there was a lot more respect for coaches, for staff, for teachers, for education, I think, in general, from children. And that was a massive a bonus, but just a massive help to the coach, I think, as well. But
I can remember having many conversations. We had quite a few calls now. I can remember you being sat in Starbucks and having a drink, and we were on the phone and talking and sharing your experiences. I can remember that really vividly. It was fantastic, because I was jealous at the time. I think I was still in England when you were there, and I always had a love for being abroad, and to get your experiences and conversations from that was incredible. I absolutely loved that. It was brilliant to know how you get on.
I think so. Right? Yeah, I think that's one of the things you've got to remember, to try to have a bit of a balance in terms of family, friends, and just your work. But no, it's good, definitely very good. But from there I came back to the UK. That's when I went to work for the FA, and like we said in the previous episode, I went from Essex to Oxfordshire in 2 days. I had to turn around my life basically to go up, and for 18 months I lived in a B&B, because I was up there what was I up there? 4 nights a week, and then come back for the weekend. And the reason I came back was because initially I was the 21s assistant manager at Barkingside, and then the opportunity came up to go to Chelmsford City. So I went to Chelmsford City as the first team fitness coach. So what I would do is I'd drive up to Oxfordshire on a Monday. I would then work Monday, stay Monday, work Tuesday, drive back to Essex to do a Tuesday night session, drive back to Oxfordshire, do Wednesday, Thursday work, do the session in Essex on a Thursday. Friday I'd be home based, and then we'd have a game somewhere on a Saturday. And it could be anywhere, Conference South. We were like wherever it may be, Weymouth and Western-super-Mare and what have you. And sometimes it became a pain because I remember things like a game at Gosport Borough on a Tuesday night, and I'm thinking, like, how am I going to get there? I'm finishing the session at 3 in Oxfordshire. I've got to get down to Gosport. And it was just a case of having to do it, having to make it work. And it did. But yeah, it was just, one of them things. But it was a great experience being around like that level. We had players, remember the captain was a guy called Mark Hughes, played for about 300 odd games for Oldham, played for Northern Ireland. We had a guy called Lee, what was his surname? Can't remember his surname now, but part of Mourinho's Chelsea squad the first time round, made the bench a few times, never actually played a minute, but made the bench. And being in that right around people like that, unbelievable.
That's a great experience.
It's just unbelievable experience. And then I left it because I then went to be part of Dean Holdsworth's backroom team at Brentwood Town. So I went with Dean. And same again, it was a real experience. We had some good players, but I left because I had the opportunity to go to America for a bit. So I left my job at the FA, I left my coaching role and went to the States. And I was out there for a few months. Loved it, did enjoy it. I had the opportunity to keep my contract to go back into January, but I didn't renew it. I came back and worked in the UK instead. And went to Oxford United.
What was the FA was a really good experience for you.
Yep.
What do what were some of your reflections on your time there? Obviously, where the FA was at that time, the courses that were coming out, the experience, the youth awards and stuff like that. That must have been we spoke a little bit about that in the last episode, but those courses and to be involved with, obviously, the Football Association must have been an unreal experience.
Yeah, a bit surreal at times, because I remember, like, if we had training events, it was either at Wembley or you go to St George's Park, and it was just like, this is just a different world. But yeah, sort of like just doing training with like-minded people, but also people that had been in really good positions. I remember in my team, so my team was Oxfordshire Berks and Bucks. And we had a guy called Mark Rivers, who, decent player back in the day, played in had coached, manager experience, non-league. He was the community manager for, I want to say, Plymouth Argyle. So he had a good experience around football and worked with other people in that team that are really, really good people and good football people. And I learned a lot from them. But also when we did national events, you had people from all over the place to giving insights and great talks and learning from sessions, and the CPD was unbelievable. And it was a shame to leave, but at the same time I left because I don't know, as maybe a bad trait in myself, I get itchy feet quite quickly, and I want to jump and I want to try something new. And at the time I wanted to try something new in terms of going to America, and that was the right thing to do at that time.
So talk to us about America then. How do you feel about that?
I liked it. I did like it. I liked the team coaching. I think there were elements of it where, same again, I couldn't believe the level. I had an under 14 group and we trained 3 times a week, and then I had an under 10 group, I believe, and that was same again, 3 times a week, and then a couple of little groups in between and sessions that I used to do, little sessions. And then I was doing things like coach education workshops. We all took it in turns, to be fair, in the team to deliver to each other. And it was really, really good experience because, same again, in my team, I had people that had been out in the States for a long while, British coaches, American coaches, people that have worked in various situations. It was really, really good. So I liked that aspect. The reason I didn't stay was because I liked the area, but it just wasn't quite a right fit for me. I was in New Hampshire, and I just wanted something a bit different. And it was either going to be Canada or the UK, really, for me. And I ended up going to back to the UK. But I think, in that time, obviously one thing we have skipped over is Sweden. And so whilst I was at the FA and before America, obviously we had the opportunity to do things in Sweden, and we went out, didn't we? It's just a holiday for us. Went out a couple of times. Loved the place.
Yeah, Sweden was
Really,
unreal. No,
really
that
good.
was a great experience.
And but for me, I had the opportunity to go out, and there was an English guy called Stuart Gibson, still out there, but he played out there for about 20 odd years, decent in the top leagues. And he was a coach at a club called Budens, which was notoriously a big club in Swedish football, but had dropped down to the third tier. And I went out there with the purpose of signing a contract. And like I said, it wasn't quite the right fit contractually, but I maintained the deal with it. So I did like opposition scouting and stuff like that. Had another opportunity to go to Ita Hogdals, another club in Sweden. Same again, wasn't quite the right fit. I was going to be earning more money and what have you in England at the time, and I wanted to take that option rather than maybe the experience, which maybe you look back on and it could go either way. It could have been the right thing or the wrong thing, you don't know. But the right thing at the time. And I really enjoyed that, and the opportunity to go out. And same again, it's talking football. We still had a network with it. But yeah, I still just did like the opposition scouting, consultancy work for those clubs. And it was a good experience. But it was one of those things where, in terms of a culture, even though it's short-lived, it was very influential on my experiences because, same again, especially with the opposition scouting, you learn new ways of doing things and you learn new styles. And every coach you work with, manager you work with, they've all got their own ways of playing. So that's different in the sense of you have to learn that way as a coach, an analyst as well.
I think that's like really, really interesting because I think the experience that you've had, and you talk about Sweden, you talk about Canada, you talk about America, and the information, the experiences you're going to pull from those different places, whether or not they're, like you say, they're long term, as in years and years and years, or a couple of months. Like you say, you're going to get real key bits of information from those different people, and those experiences are really going to set you up well for the future. And I think you talked about some of your positions before. You spoke about the things that Canada gave you, those experiences, and doing those CPD events alongside coaching and having some of really good educators and coaches as mentors or as managers, and to learn from those sorts of people allows you to develop yourself.
Oh, definitely.
I think that's one thing that, your CV and the information, and the experience you've got demonstrate that sort of willingness to go and explore, to adapt. Obviously, as coaches, I think one of, like we spoke about before, it's one of our big skills that I think we need to have as coaches is the ability to adapt. But there's no better form of adapting to taking a job 2 days before it's meant to start, and making connections and flying halfway across the world, and sometimes it's difficult. Fair play to you. Those opportunities that you had in Sweden, obviously you go with the idea, or I imagine you go to the idea thinking, I'm going to take this job. You go there and you make those connections with people, and you have it in mind that you're going to take it, and it's a brave thing, because I think you can look at it both ways, and obviously you get to that point where you're going and you're thinking, I'm going to take it, and then to have the confidence as well to say, look, this isn't right for me at this moment in time is also a really big decision, isn't it? It's not a case of, well, this is now what I've got, I'm going to do it, and be patient as well.
I think that's the thing. You've got to know yourself, and you've got to know what you want from it. Like with Canada, I went out 4 times, I think. From the first time was 2012. Last time in terms of coaching wise was end of 2015. But I went out like 4 times in that spell, and every time was slightly different. I was doing coach education, I was doing team coaching, I was doing one-to-one sessions with coaches, I was doing one-to-one sessions with players. It was all very bit different each time, very different. And then Sweden, obviously, like I said, was different experiences again. But then when I came back and settled into the role at Oxford United, the opportunity with that one was, a female development manager, but also overseeing the boys' college program. So we oversaw, I think it was 50 players, something like that, 47, and then the female program in the community. And that was good. But like I said in the last episode, what it did was enable me to think I like teaching, I want to be this, because I was in that college environment. So I wanted to try that route. And I thought I could always have football on the side. That's not a problem. So, I found the role at the college, which was more of an influential factor than Oxford United, to be honest, because I was teaching, which was what I wanted to do. I was being paid to train to teach, which was also what I wanted to do. But I was also coaching every day. And I was learning from people that were fantastic. So, Peter Scott, like I said, he was he is the under 23s assistant at Reading at the moment. But he played 300 odd games for Fulham, played for Bournemouth, coached at good levels, and still does. And he was fantastic. Like the way he dealt with people, but could also flip from like being laughy jokey out of football to being like, boom, that was it. And it was like, learning those little things is just fantastic. Like dealing with people was the main thing. And like that sort of teaching experience has always stayed with me. And ever since then, I've always had teaching roles and football on the side. Just one, it gave a little bit more security. But two, I realised that football was still always going to be a big part. And I could get where I want to be somehow. And that's also where it's ended up now.
I mean, do you think those two things link really well?
Teaching, coaching?
I mean,
yeah. 100%. I will put it to a bit of a shameless plug. So I have 2 books at the moment out, so like ebooks. One is around targeting different learning styles, which is predominantly, I guess, aimed at teachers, but it's massively aimed at coaches as well, because every session you do, you have different needs. You have those learners that learn by seeing your demonstrations. You have the ones that listen to it. You have the kinesthetic learners that learn by doing. You have those visual cues and the reading, writing, whiteboards, whatever you might have, iPads, whatever it may be, those reading, writing learners. But if you affect the right learning style, you affect the learner a lot better. And I think that connection from teaching and coaching is really, really strong. And the other one as well is the book is around creating creative players, which came from my master's, which is...
I mean, that's a very good level of research, Lloyd. I would suggest.
The master's was in terms of so the reason was because the reason I wanted to do that as a dissertation was that when I was speaking to academy coaches, and I was really surprised that a massive portion of them were influenced on how they should coach by their technical director or head of coaching, without much say in terms of or flexibility, I should say. So it was almost a case of a lot of the interviews for the dissertation were around maybe the don'ts of inhibiting creativity in a player. And I think there's always elements from that as a teacher, because I don't know about yourself, but I've had that issue in terms of teaching. There's a very fine line, red tape, where you've got to do this because this is how we do it. And you can't go off and do something slightly different because it's not been done before. And I think there's that connection with football. For me, the reason I like football and I like coaching is because it gives you that freedom to do a lot of things a lot of times. So I think there's a good connection between the two, massively.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think the research and the time that you've spent in both of those books is a huge credit to yourself. When you spoke about doing your masters and your studies through COVID and through your current roles and stuff, I think fair play to you. I know you were working very, very long days to put all that together. Yeah. So I would definitely recommend those ebooks as well. They're very interesting reads, very good reads, and I think that's the important thing. What we're trying to get out of what we're trying to do here is share ideas, trying to share best practice, and ultimately create discussion. Which I think the research and the ebooks you've put together is a massive testament to the work that you've done, that you've put together, the research that you've done to put all of that together.
Thank you.
It's a huge credit. Thank
you. I mean, the thing for me is in terms of the time commitments and stuff like that to it, I've always had the full-time job, I've always had family, and I've always had a side job as well. And like for me, I was working full-time, I was doing the masters, just had a newborn baby at the time, but I was also scouting. So I worked for Mansfield as a scout, and I was doing first team scouting as opposition scouting. So I'd get assigned a game a week before, sometimes 2 weeks before, and I'd go and watch a game for Mansfield. And it was same again. It was that combination of scouting with other experiences, and just for something in terms of a connection or a network. And it wasn't really feasible at the time because I did have a lot going on, but it's what has happened now is I still have
just a bit.
But even now, like it's the same thing because that masters led to the blog site. The blog site led to my current role, and my current role led to me writing books. So I've always had something on the side. but yeah, commitment-wise, you have to be committed, I think.
Yeah, I mean we've got about 15 minutes, or I think that's probably a really good amount of time now to really delve into the key
Marshall Islands,
and probably the biggest question that everyone is waiting for. I think we'll save it for the end. So I mean, please, I think some of the media that I've seen talking to you about that journey, I think if you can take it from your blogs, the Q&A to where you are now in the time that we have, I mean, we're probably not going to have enough time, but we're definitely going to have to revisit it. So it's definitely another shameless plug to get people to subscribe to the channel, because to try and cover what you've done so far this year is probably going to be really tough.
We'll give it a go.
Take it away.
I think the first starting point was the blog, and obviously it got me in touch with the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation, like the president, Shem Levi, and we were just talking informally, and it was just a case of what their plans were, but they hadn't really done anything. It sat idle for 2 years, and then we were just saying, like, I could do this, this, and this, and he asked me to put together a presentation for the board of what I would do, some timelines, and how we would achieve it. So put that together. They liked it. It was signed off, and then I just had a message because of like the time difference. I woke up to the message of being 12 hours ahead at the time. It was, we'd like to offer you the role as a technical director. So I jumped at the chance, and then realised quite quickly that I definitely weren't going to be able to do it on my own. So I asked a guy called Justin Wally, who is another sort of big social media person, has experience of international projects, and he came on board in terms of like press, communications, general help, and he's been fantastic. And then very quickly, we also then gained Matt Webb, who's looking after marketing, sponsorship, fundraising, all that sort of stuff. And together, we've been very, very proactive in terms of what we've managed to achieve.
I mean, you are starting this just so
from zero.
The listeners know. I mean, you were starting from absolutely nothing. I mean, there's nothing already there. No, I mean,
there is the Marshall Islands are very Americanized in terms of their approach, and it comes from the history of America. One of the main islands, called Kwajalein, is predominantly taken up by a US military base. The national sports are like basketball, baseball, and football's only just starting to be watched really locally. And it's been driven by kids. Kids are wanting to play. They're seeing it on TV. They're seeing idols. They are PSG fans. They're Man City fans. They want to watch the game, but they also want to play it. And this is what's driving the board to make a change. So our job was then to hit the ground running, but we worked out that we need to make an awareness to the project first, and then go from there. So January was, what I'll do is, I think, we've got 15 minutes. I'll try and talk like month by month, because that'll be an easier way to do it. So January for us was like, it was the launch month. We started social media. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Twitter boomed. Within within about 5 hours, we had like 500 followers. But some of those were like Sky Sports journalists, BBC, people all over the world. And by the end of July, we were on Daily Mail, Daily Mail, Daily Mirror, ESPN was later, Sky Sports, and then the TV appearance on BBC TV for Breakfast TV. But then also, we had like Al Jazeera, we had El Mundo, we had lots of these different ones, and loads of podcasts, YouTube channels. But it also then was a start of people getting in touch about how can we help. So we started our GoFundMe fundraiser, and we started to raise money, because what we were doing then was we were gaining donations to get out there. So January was a lot of just publicity, really. February was then the start of the technical side of it for me. So I created a school curriculum, which will be rolled out across the schools, predominantly on the main island of Majuro. But it's just getting kids playing. So it'll be part of a PE curriculum. So what that then leads to is like now is coach education for teachers. So that was February with a youth structure, but then also,
I mean, these are things that you're very experienced in. No, I mean, you, obviously from your history at Col United, F2, your teaching, these all experiences that have literally are going to have a direct impact on the program that you're putting together.
I mean, teaching teachers, coaching coaches, coaching players. It was all linked to different roles in the past. But yeah, February also linked in different things. So, excuse me, I created a national identity based on culture of the country and the people, but connecting it to sport. So it worked out like a style of play. This is what we do, and then everything feeds into it. So we have a youth system where kids come into play, and then what we do in that, it links in a long-term project towards like each age range, and then up to like national teams. And because of the space and size and equipment is limited, everything is like very small base, so technically based but small-sided game based as well, on small formats. So futsal will be a big approach for us. But yeah, so writing that, and then it was a case of writing like the youth structure, for example. So what we do in sessions, some session examples, but then also like the key fundamentals of each age range. So 5 to 7, 8 to 11, 12 to 14, 15 onwards, or 17 and 17 onwards to adults. So then lots of different stages in that. March was a little bit more of following on with that and getting more interest in what we're going to do, starting to talk to more people about getting things out there. And that was when we started to gain a little more interest in sponsorships. So Next Gen Sport came on board and they provided us with $1,500 worth of equipment. So that went out there, some balls, bibs, cones, goals, poles, things like that we take for granted, but they don't have. So that got shipped out to Majuro.
I mean, that just displays the level and the difficulty of the task that you have on your hands.
Oh, but the biggest one was in back end of March, start of April, some calls with Kit Aid Australia, and they have connected with like various clubs all around Australia and New Zealand and local countries just to provide kits and equipment to get out to the Marshall Islands to help. So we were donated, I think it was around 500 shirts, 500 shorts, tracksuits, socks, 80 pairs of football boots, stuff like this, because they don't have boots and stuff like that, right? Wow. So it's very
incredible.
So
that is incredible.
That's a massive help. So now we've got some basics there. We can now start to grow it more. But then also at the same time, Matt and Justin have been massively working on things like the marketing, the sponsorship, the fundraising, the press communications, but also
I guess that's the biggest hurdle
getting funds
that you face at the moment.
Because we're not part of a confederation. We aim to go down that route. Everyone thinks we're going to go down OFC because we are located in Asia, Oceania, but we are looking at Asia because as well. Just keep your options open because we have justifications for it. Neighbouring countries are in it. You have Guam, North Mariana Islands, Australia, they're all in AFC. So there's options to go there as well. But the good thing about it is this whole process has expanded my network further. So I've started, talking to technical directors of different countries. I've had chats over Zoom and Teams with technical directors from different countries, like Pakistan, for example, Iraq, like Asian countries within Asia that were really, really helpful. I was talking to technical directors from Jordan, Saudi Arabia, big countries in terms of football. And what I was trying to find out was what they do in their countries and seeing if there's anything we can implement on a lot smaller scale to taking key points away from it. But yeah, that's been fantastic.
I mean, that is an absolute level. I mean, that is crazy. I mean, when it's difficult to, obviously, until you're actually in it, to try to fully understand that.
Oh,
Lloyd,
unbelievable. I was talking to a guy called Stuart Hall, who is technical director for the Philippines, and he was saying about his job is unbelievably hard because there's hundreds of islands with lots of different people, and he's got to collaborate them all into teams from various age groups, teams up to national level, but also the club teams and the coach education and stuff like this. So it's interesting to see how different countries have approached it, and then what we can take that into the Marshall Islands. But yeah, it's.
I'm fair play to you. I mean, to start from scratch, I think the things that you're explaining is so based on your experiences and the knowledge that you've gained from different places. Because I mean, the task that you've got is incredible.
It's unbelievable. But the thing is, like, it's all those different ones. So, like, obviously, like we said, teaching teachers, coaching coaches, coaching players, but also things like the scouting experience has come into play now, because part of the role is looking into recruitment. So we're trying to expand using my network and then people I know of and their network to create partnerships and pathways for people around the world. We've realised over the last few months that there are massive communities of Marshallese people in the US. And we've come across some players that have contacted us that are Marshallese descendants, like parents are Marshallese, but they play like university level in the States. So in terms of eligibility for the national team, that's fantastic, because that helps to improve standards and ability as well. Yeah. But we've also realised that we can help that. So we talk regularly with community groups from the US. So there's a lot of community groups of Marshallese people in Arkansas, Washington State. So we are providing donations to those guys in terms of kit and equipment. We're getting them playing as well, because long term, obviously, that gets more people playing, but it also raises awareness to our project, and you never know what that could lead to down the line. We've also got things like Sport in KC, so Sport in Kansas City and MLS. They have an affiliate club called Sport in Arkansas. Their technical director speaks to us quite regularly in terms of how they want to help. So we're trying to grow the game there as well in terms to help Marshallese people, which is fantastic.
I mean, it's mind-blowing the level of work that you've got in your hands. And I mean, listening to some of the interviews that you've done, I can remember watching your interview with the BBC Live. That was. I mean, obviously, we're really close friends, and to be able to watch you do that at the time was fantastic. And the more you understand about the history and the current project that you've got, it is a real tough job on your hands.
Yeah.
I think you've got plans to go over soon.
Yeah, so I fly out on the 29th of July. I'll be out for a couple of weeks. It doesn't sound long in terms of because of the travel, but it's long enough in terms of it's not a lot happening in terms of the football landscape at the moment, but it's long enough to get things going. So whilst I'm there, we'll hold national trials for players to gain an interest in players that are wanting to play in the league format, which will start, but also be eligible for the national team. We'll run a couple of kids sessions, like camp style, and then we'll also have a coach education workshop for locals, for teachers, and for just general public that want to coach and be part of the programs.
I imagine your time there is your time there is going to be extremely busy.
I think so, because we've got some good meetings as well. So I've got a meeting with like various places. So, for example, one of the contacts that we've spoken to in America is a company that provide the Olympic trials for athletes for the Marshall Islands, but for the US-based athletes. So they're going to also help to run US-based soccer tryouts, football trials for Marshallese people. But also that then means I'm going to meet with the Olympic Committee in the Marshall Islands when I'm there, the college. So in terms of like how we can affect their students and help them. So yeah, we've got some good things in place. And then also, I bet you.
No, I was going to say. I mean, I bet you're looking forward to it. I bet you can't wait to get out there and actually finally sort of touch down. And
once I take off, I'll be looking forward to touching down. It's like 30 odd hours.
I don't envy you doing that. That is a long trip.
Yeah, very long. I think it's connect to San Francisco, then Hawaii, then Majuro. But it's like a 12-hour overnight stop off in Hawaii. So we shall see. But no, it'll be good. But yeah, it's just I'm looking forward to it. It'll be one of the ones where it's going to be eye-opening. But then once we come back, we'll have more of a plan of what we need to do next. But we have some good things in place with a potential decent sponsor coming on board which could be game-changing in terms of the financial package. So we shall see.
Yeah, you've also talked about other areas, but I know you're looking at getting a national stadium.
Yeah.
There's work ongoing for that, isn't
so
there?
the national stadium is like supported financially by a few neighbouring countries, in exchange for various things. But yeah, that's near on completion, literally in the next month or so. So that'll be good. There's an indoor facility
Fantastic.
which is going to be opening soon, around the same sort of time frame, and that's going to be a potential base for futsal as well. So that'll be good.
Lloyd, when you come back, we will definitely have to have an episode, a catch up and a review of. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will really enjoy listening to the experience you gained from being there, and seeing your work put into place.
Hopefully it goes well.
That is definitely on the list to put
but
in.
The referee has blown for half time, hasn't he?
He has, and that kind of brings us to the end. Episode 2. Lloyd Owers. It's fantastic, Lloyd, to hear about your experiences and your journey, and there's so much still that we can touch on for you, and we'll definitely do that in future episodes. And your current role with the Marshall Islands is something that I think a lot of people are really gonna keep an eye on.
I did forget to say one thing. We had the kit competition, didn't we? That went out. We got we had a winner from it and all sorts. That will go live. The shirts will be available for that in the next couple of months.
Oh, okay. I'll have to definitely get my hands on one of those shirts. I have to get it signed from someone in the Marshall Islands. So. Lloyd, thank you very much. We're well into added on time, so we'll have to wrap it up.
You're up next.
Episode 3 is me. So roles reversed. I'm going to be in the hot seat, and we will see how that goes. But please hit subscribe, like, follow us on Twitter, and hopefully look forward to seeing you in episode 3. And take care, everyone.
Guys.
Adios.
Adios.
Adios. Ciao.